Steve Cabeza, SouthFloridaFoodTour.com. Welcome to our video series. I'm in beautiful Boca Raton, Florida. It's a gorgeous day. Summer is upon us. I'm with my friend, Chef Shawn Smilie, and we're at the club at Boca Pointe. How are you, Chef?
Fantastic. How you doing, Steve?
Very well. Thank you for the time, and thank you for being part of this. I loved your experience when we were chatting about your time in Vegas, so thank you very much. So let's just get into it. How long have you been a cook, Chef? Tell us a little bit about your journey, please.
Well, I've been a cook probably since I started cooking when I was 5 years old with my grandmother and my mother. When I was 10 years old, I told my father when I grew up I wanted to be a chef. As far as being an actual chef, I think I'm still working on that. But as a title, I've been a chef for about 10 years.
Okay. And how did you find yourself here in Boca Raton?
Well, I've lived in Vegas for 27 years. The last position I held in Vegas was at the Proper Eats Food Hall at Aria. And there I met my boss there, basically who hired me there, became the senior vice president for Heritage Golf Group. And him and I got along really well and decided we wanted to work together again. And he reached out and was sending me, pictures of the weather at different clubs in the cities that Heritage owns. He sent one of the club at Boca Pointe, actually February of 24, and I told him I'm not moving to Florida. 6 months later, I moved to Florida, so it's a beautiful thing.
I love it. Area, that's a big casino, right?
Yes.
From what I recall. So you've been a chef about 10 years. You found yourself here in Boca Pointe. So tell us a little bit about this club. What's the story behind the club at Boca Pointe?
So the club, it used to be an equity club, and now it's a corporate club. Difference is equity club's owned by the members. Corporate club is what it says is a corporation owns it. An equity club is a not-for-profit. Corporate, obviously, is we're trying to make money. So there's a different stipulation. Equity club is basically all the money and the dues and the initiation goes into the club, and they got to spend all of it by the end of the year. Corporate, once again, we're trying to make money. The dues and goes to pay for everything, but we're trying to make a profit at the end of the year, like running a regular business.
And so how's that transition going?
It's going very well. It's a little, members here can be a little challenging. If you go from getting everything you always wanted and you not have to worry about anything to now they're putting stipulations on things, it can, lead to challenges there. But overall, they're going along really well. Heritage took over about 3.5 years ago, I think it is here. Like I said, the growing pains, a lot of them I got to miss all that. So we're going on the right direction now. The food was an issue for a while too. Between the time that it went from the equity club to being a corporate club, they went through. I'm now the 4th chef.
Okay.
So in 3.5 years, I'm number 4. I've been here for almost a year. Like I said, there was a challenge with the food. Our food is getting much, much better as far as all of our member events go. The restaurant there's still a few challenges. We have a bunch of cooks, obviously, who've been here for a very long time. We're working on the skill set, getting them trained and everything so that they're actually cooking things by recipes, following recipes, and doing everything the same way every single time.
Well, the place is nice. It's certainly sprawling. You have a lot of space here. It's pretty. We're in Boca Raton. Growing up in South Florida, I know what Boca Raton is. It's white and entitled. Many people are Hebrew or Jewish. You can find that. Does that sum up kind of your...
1,000%.
Okay. Well, to each their own. I love it. Different stripes. So, Chef, where did you grow up? Remind me. I know we've talked about this before the camera, please.
So I grew up in a little town called LaPorte in Colorado. It's right outside of Fort Collins. The population, I believe, is still around 2,500 people.
Wow.
So I kind of grew up in the country.
Small town USA, right?
Literally, my house was less than a mile of the foot of the Rockies. So I grew up, where it was nice and really, really cold.
Skiing?
I've been skiing one time in my entire life. I've always found other things to spend my money on. Mostly was girls when I was growing up,
I get you.
And then I vowed that when I was able to move out, that I would go somewhere where it's warm. Hence the reason I went to Las Vegas, and now I'm in Florida. Snow is not my friend.
Yeah, I'm with that. Snow's not my friend either. I love it. I grew up on a golf course, and I don't golf. I was spending my time fishing.
I love to golf, especially now that I work at a country club. It's a lot easier to golf when you work at a country club.
Amen. And so what's your favorite food? Where did your love of food come from? Family? Friends?
So my love of food came from, like I said, I learned to cook with my grandmother. My mother was all started with baking, cookies, for the holidays, some cakes, some pies, stuff like that. I don't know. When I was 10, like I said, I told my father when I grew up, I'm going to be a chef.
At 10.
At 10. Of course, I was going to be a professional baseball player, professional football player. I was not nearly as big as I am now when I was, a kid. I didn't really get to my final height until actually I graduated high school. So it was a very big dream. It was a pipe dream, if you want to say, that there was no way that was probably ever going to happen. I'm not Jose Altuve, where I was gifted with that, that talent. So I always went back to that I was going to be a chef. I started cooking with the first restaurant I worked in. It was right after high school. I was 17 years old.
Oh, yeah.
And then, from there it went on in restaurants, hotels, casinos. I went to culinary school at the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park, New York. So that was where I learned the basics of cooking. This is back when, the restaurants in the United States weren't what they are today, right? Food Network had a lot to do with that, to getting everybody to realize what real good food is. Back in the 80s, early 90s, when I started, it was a joke that basically you went to culinary school, they were going to give you a box cutter because this is what you're going to need for your whole career, because everything that you cook is actually going to come out of a package.
Fascinating.
And I was the first hotel I worked in, literally, brown sauce. Open a package, boiling water, stir it, brown gravy.
Wow.
Turkey gravy, same thing. Country gravy, all of it. Everything came out of a package.
What, like from Cisco or Cheney Brothers?
Cisco, Cheney, back then there was Kraft Foods before there was US Foods. But yeah, everything came basically in a box. So you didn't really learn how to make stock. Stock was base. You took chicken base, beef base, once again, boiling water, stir it in. Now you have flavored water, basically. It's not stock. And I didn't learn how to make that until I went to culinary school.
What was that first restaurant that you worked in at 17?
So the first restaurant I worked at was called Nate's Steak and Seafood Restaurant. It's in Fort Collins, Colorado. It was one of the nicest restaurants in Fort Collins at the time. Like I said, food scenes changed there drastically. It's a huge craft brewing city. I think there's more craft breweries in Fort Collins than almost anywhere. And that brought food trends and everything in there as well. I haven't been back there for many, many years. My family still lives there. I don't get an opportunity to visit as much as I'd like. But yeah, it's definitely interesting.
So, Chef, what I'm thinking is, just so we can change up the background, let's walk around a little bit and see some more of the food.
Sounds great.
Yeah. And it's not season right now. Does that mean you don't have as many events, or they're just more sporadic?
Well, it's technically not season now, but we're actually busy all the way through the 31st of this month.
Okay.
Memorial Day weekend is insane. We have events every day from Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Like I said, our food quality's gotten a lot better, so we've had a lot better turnout on our member events. To where technically we're not in season, but we're still doing parties of 250, where last year when we first started, when everybody came back, when they came back, there was 250 people that came to it. Now we have nobody, but most of our membership's gone, and we still have 250 people coming.
So that's great news.
Because basically the food, they're happy with the food, they're happy with what we're doing, so that there's, more and more people that weren't coming before are now coming. So, like I said, we're going in the right direction, which is huge. Very happy that the food quality is getting better, and that we're able to, bring in some new members.
Well done, Chef. And so now we transitioned into some different space. Is this, would you say this is the main kitchen here?
This is actually a secondary kitchen we use only for when we do banquet parties. We mostly there's hardly any cooking done here. This club is enormous.
Okay.
There's 5 different kitchens here. Wow. We really only use 2 of them. The one downstairs, which is our main kitchen, which we're doing service out of right now. We have a banquet kitchen in the back over here, which most of the stuff does. Here's more of where when we do banquet parties, we're plating on the line, holding stuff hot here. We don't do a whole lot of actually service out of here. We've done a couple of services out of here for fine dining dinners that we've done. We plan on utilizing the kitchen as well, coming up, doing some smaller, more intimate, higher end fine dining, and transitioning a couple of our card rooms into restaurants sometimes to give a member experience.
Love it. Well, wouldn't you prefer to have more space than less? Totally.
More space is great, except for the fact that it's a lot harder to keep the more space clean, and also the more equipment, the chance that all your equipment and smallwares and everything are spread out, and you have to go hunting stuff down. It also is hard when you have multiple places to find where everybody's at, because you'll be walking in circles trying to find the same person you're looking for until you stop, and then all of a sudden, like, hey, I've been looking all over for you.
You don't carry radios around?
We don't carry radios. The cell service in this building is absolutely atrocious. We had a corporate event a month and a half ago and they've updated our Wi-Fi, and it was great while they were here for it. And since it's not working properly right now either. So they're coming back to fix it. So we had great Wi-Fi on the second floor. First floor, there's still no Wi-Fi, so they're coming back so that we have it throughout the building.
Hopefully it doesn't affect the food quality, right?
Oh, it definitely doesn't affect the food.
So I love the journey of the cook to chef and how you got to Boca. So have you considered ever hanging your own shingle, having your own restaurant?
I've gone back and forth with that. Obviously when you're hanging your own shingle, as you say, you're married to your position. I mean, that's and I have enough passion and love for that. But I think that my wife would be a little upset because I wouldn't be giving her as much love, so it'd be a little more difficult. But it does go back and forth through my mind, if I would ever do that. I'm still, I believe, young enough that I could open one and be successful. It's basically finding the right place, the right product, the right cuisine. I love food in general, so I don't know exactly what kind of restaurant I would open. Some people say that you can't have a restaurant that serves all cuisine because you can't be good at cooking everything. I beg to differ, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, you heard it here first, folks. Chef Smilie may hang his own shingle. All right, so I'm fascinated with the journey in Vegas. So you got to Vegas. Where was the first stop in Vegas?
So my first stop in Vegas was, I was actually at Circus.
Okay.
They had an Italian restaurant that they were opening called Stivali. So Circus actually has a famous steakhouse. It's called The Steakhouse. Okay. It was voted the best steakhouse in Las Vegas for, at the time I was there, I think it was 20 or 25 years in a row.
Wow.
So they actually had a very, very good restaurant. Great product. It was busy. I was probably still busy today. I know that's such a good place to work that they had it was easy for them to retain staff. The servers have been there forever. The general manager is a friend of mine. He's still the general manager today. I worked there in '97. Wow. He's still the GM today. And he'd been the GM for, I think, 5 or 10 years before I got there. Wow. So, it's a very good place. They tried to parlay that into an Italian restaurant that was on the second floor, which they called the promenade level, in front of the amusement park. My experience of being in Vegas, I've realized that you take stuff off the casino floor and you take it out of the main pathway, it's a lot harder for places to be successful. Same thing with when I was at Aria, I became the chef of the buffet. Our buffet was on the second floor, not in the middle of traffic, not as busy as it was in every other casino when you're on the casino floor where everybody's walking by it. It was a beautiful concept. Beautiful layout. It just wasn't where, you don't have the main traffic where everybody's checking in, walking by the buffet, see the buffet, stand in line. There was, I think, 27 different restaurants and bar locations in Aria there. So, when you're going by all the other ones on the main casino floor, unless you're going to one of the destination ones that they had upstairs, the buffet was kind of forgotten there.
Oh, fascinating. So, I have a couple of questions. This is blowing me up. So before I started the South Florida Food Tour, I worked in hospital marketing and public relations. And one time I had to interview a physician. He was an infectious disease doctor and also did travel medicine. And this guy was fascinating. He was into wellness and not, pills and not big pharma. Anyway, I remember this. I interviewed this guy for Hospital Magazine and was just wrapping up, and it was pretty stale and staid. And I said, Doc, give me some secret that nobody knows. And he thought for just a brief beat, and he said, Steve, don't ever eat scrambled eggs at a buffet. And I said, why is that? He said, here's the one reason. Doctors, scientists, they grow cultures in eggs, right? That's where you grow pathogens. And he said a lot of buffets, unless they're very high volume, that scrambled egg dish is literally waiting to kill you. And after that, I only got eggs to order. I can promise you that. So, and then I read Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain, and I remember him. I guess he started in Manhattan or somewhere in New York, and he used to say that the seafood deliveries would come on Thursday or Friday, so don't ever eat seafood salad on Sunday or Monday. So tell me, what are some secrets of the buffet industry that a lot of people don't know? And I mean, don't freak us out, right? I don't want to ruin the industry because I have so much influence with this podcast.
Well, I can tell you that now the higher end buffets, they're not doing large batches of scrambled eggs, so you're not going to get sick from scrambled eggs in them. Most of them obviously have an omelet station where you can get fresh scrambled eggs as well.
Made to order, yeah.
But they went from being, you know, basically troughs of food that everybody's coming up and digging out with a spoon to being smaller single service items that are, you know, so they're made more to order.
Okay.
One thing that I can tell you, the secret is they put the best, most healthiest stuff in the middle of the buffet, not on the end. The most expensive stuff in the middle of the buffet, not on the ends, hoping that you'll fill your plates before you get to the middle, so you won't have room. I can tell you though, there's a lot of people I've watched, you know, the big piles of plates, and it'll have everything, including eggs to crab legs on top.
Just waste.
They just, you know, they fill it up, they go eat some of it, throw it away, and then they go back to the crab legs because they finally found the crab legs.
Fascinating. Tell us some more about buffets. I think they're did you love it or did you hate it, or was it just the job?
I definitely, when I got the job at the buffet Aria, I was moved into the position. It wasn't something that I was aspiring to do. It was a great experience. You know, anytime when you're, you know, it was over $1 million a month, sometimes $2.5 million a month revenue.
Wow.
So we were making, you know, 25 million a year, which is a lot. The one thing about that means you're spending a lot. There was months that I would spend almost $1 million in food. Our payroll was, you know, $750,000 a month, and the payroll didn't change no matter what how much volume we did. It was a union house, so basically the staff you have, they're working. Okay. Unless they don't want to work, kind of thing, right? Which is a benefit when you know, when you're doing that volume. The other thing is, you know, they're all coming to work. There's 95% of your employees, they show up every day on time. They're happy to be there. You know, it's a very good working environment. But if you're doing, you know, you go to one day where, you know, we do 3,500 to 4,000 covers, you know, on a busy day. If you're doing 1,500 covers, you're still paying the same number of people. Understood. And I had over 100 cooks that worked for me there.
Jeez Louise, a literal army.
Yes.
So the buffet, I spent hours talking about it. We don't have that time. So tell me, Chef, did you enjoy your time in Las Vegas, or was it tiresome, bothersome, traffic? I mean, we have traffic here. Well, how was the secondary life outside of the kitchen, outside of the resort?
I lived in Las Vegas for 27 years.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's probably. You saw it grow.
Yep. So it went from, it was sort of big when I got there. It's huge now. I watched through the recession and everything. I loved living in Las Vegas. I moved to Las Vegas I went to culinary school in upstate New York, moved to Las Vegas because I don't like snow. The weather there is beautiful. I never thought that I would move from Las Vegas, honestly. I had always said that, you know, it would take a whole lot of money to make me move anywhere cold. I got the opportunity. I'd never been to Florida before I came to this position. I came and checked it out about a month and a half before I got here. And I don't want to live anywhere else now. Florida's wonderful.
Yeah, we both Steve Sarsfield and I. By the way, this video production is assisted by the creative genius and expertise of Steve Sarsfield with South Florida Video Productions. Been my go-to guy for many, many years. And also assists with the smoking hot hit that is the Hallandale Beach walking food tour. You can get tickets at southfloridafoodtour.com. Oh, and I have other bespoke culinary experiences. So you can have an evening with the very talented Chef Abe at Krakatoa. You can have an evening with the world's most decorated pizza champion, Chef Massimiliano Stamera. Or we can do an evening with the chef Ivan Dorval of Redwood. He won Chopped in 2012. I can put a wonderful bespoke culinary experience together for you at Varoca. She makes the best empanadas and alfajores on the planet. She's from Argentina. And so check it out. Get at me. Your boy Steve is here for you. back to Chef Smilie. So, are you a gambler, Chef? Did you ever find yourself at the blackjack table smoking cigarettes, planning the buffet the next day?
I never found myself sitting at a blackjack table smoking cigarettes because I've only smoked very few cigarettes in my entire life.
Me too.
I like to be kind of healthy, so.
I hear you. So you weren't a gambler?
I tried gambling when I first moved to Las Vegas, as everybody does. I was smart enough to quit, which a lot of people aren't. So yeah, no, I very rarely. I haven't gambled in probably 20 years.
Well done. And I met your charming, attractive, charismatic wife, Ashley. She's a handful. Is she a gambler?
She does not gamble anymore either. We did gamble. I mean, she used to a little bit, but now that we're married and we have, we spend a lot more time together. So
love it. Love it, love it. Good, because it's a waste of money. I try not to gamble, that's for sure.
Yeah, Vegas wasn't built on winners. Let's put it that way.
Amen. So what were some of the most popular buffet items? Was it the carving station or the seafood? I feel like that has high perceived value.
Well, it depended on what time of the year it was and where we're at. We used to do a barbecue brisket that was really, really popular. I had a guy told me that if it was his last meal on life, that he'd come there and eat that all day long. It was that good. Crab legs, our Las Vegas buffet, they always had crab legs, and I'm talking mountains and mountains of crab legs. We'd sell, 1,000 to 1,500 pounds of crab legs a day.
Wow.
So crab legs are where it's at. Sushi was a big thing. It was brand new when people started putting sushi on buffets. Back then, it's been, 12 or 13 years since I've been working a buffet at Aria. So now the trends, luckily I don't know what's going on in buffets anymore in Vegas. That's a great thing, especially being in Florida.
Do your members like buffets here at Boca Pointe, or you just don't even do it?
No, we do buffets here.
Special events?
Yeah, special events. We do buffets. We probably once or twice a month. We do a lot of action stations where we have live cooking. So we don't just set up. We don't do the troughs when we do our buffets. It's smaller individual serving items displayed well that, the members can still, technically you're going through a buffet line, but it's like you're getting fresh cooked quality food.
And what does that do? Does that slow down the troughing or just give them sort of more entertainment, make it interactive? What's the value in that?
It makes it so you can serve a lot more people faster.
Okay.
It makes it so that they're not realizing, that how long it takes when they're going through a buffet line. They know how long the line is. They're getting their stuff. They're taking it back to their table. It can be challenging, if you have 300 people sit down in a restaurant at one time to cook meals for 300 people at the same time. I don't care where you're at. If you have a ticket machine that starts printing in your kitchen and it doesn't stop,
someone's going to jump off.
It basically, when you're the first ticket, it's cooked in order. It's going to take as long as it's going to take to cook. If it starts printing and it doesn't stop, it's going to take a lot longer to cook than if the tickets are spaced out, because everybody gets a chance to start one ticket. The next ticket comes in, you start that ticket. You're cooking stuff and putting it, plating it, and it's not just getting basically bum rushed with everything at one time. It's like I said, I don't care what staff you have. How many people, when your ticket machine starts and doesn't stop, it takes a lot of time to put the food out. Yeah,
and that's also increases the stress level, presumably, in the kitchen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just the sound of that, I've seen bartenders get nervous.
Yeah, well, there's many nightmares that many a chef and cook have had, that you hear the ticket machine in your dreams. You're worried you're leaving, so you wake up because you thought you have pans of stuff burning in the oven or on the fire. I recently had one a couple months ago that I had a pan that I picked something up, and literally, I don't remember what I was cooking, but it turned to dust in my dream as I was picking it up because I'd cooked it, Yeah, those nightmares are a lot less now in my position, but, every once in a while it still happens.
Love it. So I want to talk a little bit about Noel Turner. How I met Chef Smilie the first time is, besides SouthFloridaFoodTour.com, my food tour empire and bespoke culinary experience, wine tastings, pairings, cooking demonstrations, you name it, get at your boy Steve. I came here for the first time with Noel Turner, New Zealand. We cooked over here. And for those that don't know, Noel Turner is a force of nature. He has these grass-fed, free-range lamb and beef from farms in New Zealand. He also makes chemical-free calamari, and he makes Turner greenland mussels that are aquacultured wild, very delicious superfood, a brain food. So how did you first meet Noel Turner, Chef?
One of his representatives came in with a little package that had some Turner sea salt in it, a couple supplements, and a couple pamphlets and asked if they could come in and show me some grass-fed meat. And I, of course, was like, absolutely, I love meat, you know, bring me some grass-fed meat. So they set up an appointment. Honestly, I actually missed that appointment, I'll be honest. They were gracious enough to set up and do it again, so we tried it again. And I've been buying ever since. The Turner product, Turner beef, is the best beef I've ever tasted in my life. Recently, I smoked some flank steak for one of our members' event. We did carb smoked flank steak on our buffet, and it is literally the best piece of steak I've ever eaten in my life.
So were you hip to, I presume this, but I learned a long time ago not to presume anything. You know, my time with Noel Turner has been fabulous. You know, I dig his energy. He is a walking encyclopedia of knowledge in the industry, which I love soaking that up. I'm trying to get him to pay to have me intern with a chef so I can learn how to be a butcher. I'm working on that one still. So what, obviously, you know, you were hip to the grass-fed free-range aspect before, were you? How long have you been dialed into that, Chef?
So I've known about it. You know, grass-fed is a thing, obviously. The commercial beef industry, with all the antibiotics and hormones and everything, and they're eating grain and not healthy for them and not healthy for us. Grass-fed meat in the U.S. Was always a little more tough and gamey than what when Noel brought it in, that his grass-fed product, what his is. I know that grass-fed meat is very more healthy for you, which, like I said, I tend to live a little more healthy lifestyle. I try to eat right, eat better products, and so I was happy to be able to taste something that had the great flavor and it was easy to cook. It wasn't any additional thing. It was basically open the package and cook it like you would normal beef, to get the same quality at the end of the product.
Yeah, and so had you been using a different grass-fed or free-range product here before Turner?
No, we weren't. We were using commercial, like I said, feedlot beef, basically. We now use, so we have a large Jewish population, our membership is, and we do like Jewish deli, basically, every day. We have braised brisket. I do house brined and cooked corned beef, house brined and house smoked pastrami that we were using feedlot beef for that. Since then, I've changed it all to Turner grass-fed brisket, and the quality and the taste and flavor of it is just incredible. We did a Passover meal for 350 members where we had the grass-fed Turner grass-fed brisket, and they all said it's the best brisket they've ever eaten. And I was hesitant to let our membership know that I'd changed that because they're very resistant to change. Yes. And so after they said that, and I told them, by the way, it's a grass-fed product, because there is, a kind of a stigma with grass-fed that it's gamey, it's tough, it's not as good, it doesn't taste as good. It obviously tastes better. They're all super happy with it. And now I've told a few members that we'd switched to grass-fed, and they're like, well, how come you didn't tell us that? And I was like, well, once again, there's resistance to change. I didn't want anybody to know until you guys all said how wonderful it was. And then I basically let the cat out of the bag. And now we base all of our beef is Turner grass-fed, with the exception of liver. I'm trying to get him to give me some liver, but he also has a supplement line.
Freezor, yeah.
That they basically take all the offals of the cow. They have a beef liver supplement, and they also have a beef organ meat supplement. So they use the liver for that. I'm trying to get him to use liver here because we do sell a lot of liver and onions here.
I love it.
That I would love to be able to offer. So I could just say all of our beef is Turner. So right now, all of our beef except for liver is Turner.
So I love it. You introduced some Turner products, and it was widely accepted by the membership, and you switched over. It's the best way to do it. So let me see. I get from a lot of folks what you said, because I post content when I'm not following Noel around or doing my food tours. I'm posting content on TikTok, 3 YouTube accounts, southfloridafoodtour.com, Amplification Inc. and Steve Cabeza. So go follow those, please, now. And I get a lot of trolls, right? There's trolls out there. And that's a comment I get a lot about: the beef tastes terrible unless it's corn-fed, which is just a fallacy.
Right.
Right? I don't think you tell me, Chef, if someone were to come in here and cook a few different cuts of beef, would you be able to tell if one were corn-fed, if they were prepared identically, do you think?
Me?
Yeah.
1000% absolutely.
Okay, well done. You're a Jedi. That's why I love it. I think Noel could too. I couldn't.
I can, and basically what it is you can taste what you're eating right? They ate corn. The reason everybody says that American beef and the feedlot beef is really good is because it's corn. It makes it sweeter. Well, the cows that Noel has, they actually eat 100% live grass. They're free range. They're walking around eating what they're naturally supposed to eat. And where it's at, it's right next to the ocean where it's blowing this wonderful salt water onto the grass. So they're eating salty grass.
Yeah, minerals.
So they're basically their flavor is coming from that. Which American, like I said, with the grass-fed cows in America, they're eating alfalfa still. They're eating, they're not eating live grass all the time. They may be grass-fed, but they're not eating live grass. So there is a difference the way that the animals live.
Fascinating. It could be GMO grass or hay, right? It could be GMO soy. It could be GMO corn. And then they could be feeding these things the stuff that they're not supposed to digest. Fascinating industry. And one thing Noel's clued me into, and I haven't researched it independently, is here in the United States, because of so many mouths to feed and so much money and lobbyists and corruption and corporations, life's wonderful, is that some grass-fed free-range operations in the United States can feed that animal grass for the last couple of weeks or 30 days of its life and then call it grass-fed. But that does nothing to its whole ecosystem, right? Yeah. Okay, so last question, Chef, and I'm going to run my phone for this because this is going to go on my TikTok. A lot of my trolls out there on those various TikTok and YouTube accounts, they always want to chime in about gloves because, I follow Noel Turner around, Turner New Zealand, ultra premium products, and we do a lot of sales presentations. So tell me, you give me a pretty concise summary tell me about gloves in the kitchen. How does that all work?
Well, so I've been in the business long enough that gloves weren't a thing, right? Gloves, you used to wear gloves, to clean stuff. So you wouldn't get your hands dirty maybe. But obviously now with all the regulations and everything, gloves are a thing, right? Gloves have to be worn whenever you're doing touching ready-to-eat food that you're going to be serving to a guest.
Okay.
So if you're doing a presentation or you're doing a tasting or you're doing something like that for video content, you don't necessarily have to wear gloves. Gloves don't look very appealing in videos, right? Clean hands, look a lot better. When you're working on a hotline, if you're not going to touch the food when you're plating it, you don't need to be wearing gloves. If you're plating a salad, obviously you're touching ready-to-eat food, gloves are a thing. There is, speculation, obviously, they say that gloves, the reason you have to wear gloves is obviously it is cleaner. Gloves are really clean if you use them 100% the way they're supposed to be. You wash your hands, you put gloves on, you do your task, you take your gloves off, you wash your hands, you put your gloves on again to do the next task. In doing that, trying to put that second pair of gloves on after you dried your hands, they don't go on so well. So a lot of people they don't change their gloves as much as they should. So there's cross-contamination. The saying is basically the reason they say gloves is, you might have stuff under your fingernails even if you wash your hands. So that's why you have gloves on. If you don't have the staff, if your staff isn't doing it the correctly way, technically gloves can be, they're looking at it as gloves are protecting their hands, they're not protecting the people, which obviously the idea is to protect the people.
So anytime that you're client-facing, say when you have a buffet for your wonderful members here at the club at Boca Pointe and Boca Raton, gloves are always the
yeah, because everything that we're doing it's you're presenting them with ready-to-eat food, and if there is even the possibility you're going to touch it, you would have gloves on. In the kitchen, if you're working on the hotline, like I said, if you're able to plate everything without touching the food, you're not wearing gloves. Gloves when you're working on a hotline can be very dangerous as well because your hands might be sweaty. You reach over, fire it, basically you get steam burns inside of a glove. But 100%, if you're touching ready-to-eat food, we wear gloves.
Sounds like we have to come up with a glove product to make them. All right, Chef, this was great. I sure appreciate the time. So how does it work if someone wants to be a member at the club at Boca Pointe? Do they have to live in the zip code, or how does it work?
So Boca Pointe, actually, we opened up our membership to anybody. You can live here, you can not live here, you can live anywhere basically and have a membership here. You contact our membership department, come in, you could do a tour. check everything out. I don't know off the top of my head what our initiation is or anything like that. But yeah, you can come in and check the place out and become a member for sure.
So if you want to have fabulous golfing and a wonderful kitchen and a talented, gifted, rising star of a chef who cut his teeth in Vegas, baby, Vegas, then come to the Club at Boca Pointe, and eat some of Chef Smilie's amazing food. Chef, always a pleasure.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much for the time, and you are indeed great on camera. Thanks for watching. Hit that like and subscribe button, southfloridafoodtour.com. Booyah!